What is going on, guys? Bam Deadstroke back. Yes, I actually have a video for you all today. We're going to be covering my newest commander deck, Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Nicol Bolas, new in Magic 2019, costs 1, and then blue, black, red for a 4/4 flying, and then when Nicol Bolas the Ravager enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. You can also pay 4 blue, black, red to transform Nicol Bolas into Nicol Bolas the Arisen. Nicol Bolas the Arisen is the Planeswalker half. Starts at 7 loyalty. You can +2 to draw 2 cards. You can -3 to have Nicol Bolas the Arisen deal 10 damage to target creature or player. You can pay you can -4 to put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And if you get all the way to the -12, you get to exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. Note that that is target player's library, not each opponent's library or each library or etc. etc. It's target player. Alright, let's jump right into the creatures here. We have Nightscape Familiar, 1 and a black for a 1/1 zombie. Blue and red spells you play cost 1 less to play, and you can pay 1 and a black to regenerate it. Burnished Heart, 3 mana artifact creature elk. Pay it's a 2/2. You can pay 3 to sacrifice it and insert your library for 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. Jace's Archivist, 1 blue for a 2/2 Vidalcan Wizard. You can pay a blue and tap it to have each player discard his or her hand, then draw cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. You will start to notice a pattern with this deck. It's a lot about having everybody discard cards and draw X amount of cards, so a lot of wheel effects and such. Also playing Siren of the Silent Song, 3 mana 2/1 flyer, zombie siren. It has Inspired. Whenever it becomes untapped, each opponent discards a card, then puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. We also have Kess, Dissident Mage, 4 mana for a 3/4 flyer, legendary creature, human wizard with flying, and during each of your turns you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. A lot of the cards that involve wheeling are instants and sorceries, so having Kess in this deck really helps a lot with getting to play multiple copies. We also have Notion Thief, 4 mana for a 3/1 human rogue with flash. If an opponent would draw a card except for the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. Solemn Simulacrum, obviously 4 mana for a 2/2 golem. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library, and when it dies you draw a card. Torrential Gearhulk, again we have a lot of instants in our deck, so just needed a good value creature, and a 5/6 for 6 that gets to flashback an instant card. Just seemed like a really good fit. And we're also playing the original Nicol Bolas. 8 mana for an Elder Dragon Legend, 7/7 flyer. When it deals damage to an opponent, that opponent discards his or her entire hand. They ignore this effect if they have no cards in hand. And during your upkeep, play blue, black, red, or sacrifice Nicol Bolas. Next we will move on to the Planeswalkers. We have, first up, Angrath, the Flame Chained. 5 mana for a Planeswalker that starts at 4 loyalty. +1, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. -3, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step if it has converted mana cost 3 or less. And -8, each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard. Next we have Liliana Vess, 5 mana for a Planeswalker starting at 5 loyalty. +1, target player discards a card. -2, search your library for a card, then shuffle that card, or shuffle your library and put that card on top. And of course, Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh, 7 mana for a 7 loyalty Planeswalker. +2, target opponent exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a non-land card. Until the end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. +1, each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand. -4, Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. And -12, exile each non-land permanent your opponent's control. Next up we have all of the spells. Yes, I know I said there were a lot of them, so let's jump right into it. Wheel of Fate. Wheel of Fate is red, suspend 4. For 1 and a red, you suspend it, put 4 time counters on it. At the end of that, at the beginning of each upkeep, remove a time counter, and you remove the last one, pay it. You get to play the card. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws 7 cards. Dream Salvage. Draw cards equal to the number of cards target opponent discarded this turn. Mystical Tutor, 1 mana instant. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, and shuffle your library, put that card on top. Vandal Blast, 1 mana, destroy target artifact you don't control, or Overload, destroy each artifact you don't control. Torment of Hailfire, X, black for a sorcery. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. Bontu's Last Reckoning, 3 mana, destroy all creatures, lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. Chaos Warp, 3 mana instant, the owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Counterflux, 3 mana, Counterflux can't be countered by spells or abilities, counter target spell you don't control. You can also Overload for 1 blue-red, and it counters each spell you don't control. Croesus Charm, blue-black-red for an instant, choose 1, return target permanent to its owner's hand, destroy target non-black permanent, destroy target non-black creature, it can't be regenerated, or destroy target artifact. Dark Deal, 3 mana sorcery, each player discards all cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards -1. Disallow, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Noxious Vapors, 3 mana sorcery, each player reveals his or her hand and chooses 1 card of each color from it, then discards all other non-land cards from it. Rhystic Tutor, 3 mana sorcery, unless a player pays 2 mana, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. Windfall, each player discards his or her hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number a player discarded this way. Concentrate, 4 mana sorcery, draw 3 cards. Diabolic Tutor, 4 mana sorcery, search your library for a card and put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. Fact or Fiction, 4 mana instant, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Siphon Mind, 4 mana sorcery, each other player discards a card, you draw a card for each card discarded this way. Unnerve, 4 mana sorcery, each of your opponents chooses and discards 2 cards. Beacon of Unrest, 5 mana sorcery, put target artifact or creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Shuffle Beacon of Unrest into its owner's library. Dark Intimations, 5 mana sorcery, each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, then discards a card. You return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand, then draw a card. When you cast a Bolas planeswalker spell, exile Dark Intimations from your graveyard. That planeswalker enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on it. Note, this will not This effect will not happen when you flip Nicol Bolas into your commander, Nicol Bolas the Ravager, into Nicol Bolas the Arisen, because you didn't cast the actual Planeswalker's side. Dark Petition, 5 mana sorcery. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. Spell Mastery, if there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards, instant and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, add black to your mana pool. Hour of Devastation, 5 mana sorcery. All creatures lose indestructible until end of turn. Hour of Devastation deals 5 damage to each creature and each non-Bolas planeswalker. Incendiary Command, 5 mana sorcery, choose 2. Incendiary Command deals 4 damage to target player. It deals 2 damage to each creature, destroy target non-basic land, or each player discards all the cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards. Corvath's Fury, 5 mana sorcery. Each player choose friend or foe. Each friend discards all cards in their hand, then draws that many cards, +1. Corvath's Fury deals damage to each foe for equal to the number of cards in their hand. Mystic Confluence, choose 3, 5 mana instant. You may choose the same one more than once. Counter target spell unless the controller pays 3. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Skullrend, 5 mana sorcery. It deals 2 damage to each opponent, then those players each discard 2 cards at random. Reforge the Soul, 5 mana sorcery. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws 7 cards. You can also Miracle for 1 and a red if this is the first card you drew this turn. Cruel Ultimatum, blue, black, red. For a sorcery, target opponent sacrifices a creature, discards 3 cards, loses 5 life. Return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, draw 3 cards, gain 5 life. Decree of Pain, 8 mana, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated, draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Cycling for 3 black, when you cycle it, all creatures get -2 until end of turn. And finally, Dig Through Time, 8 mana, instant delve. You can exile a card from your graveyard while casting a spell to pay for 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, the rest on your bottom of your library. Next, we'll head up the enchantments. Most of these have to deal with when your opponent discards do something. Quest for the Nile Stone, black mana. Whenever an opponent discards a card, put a quest counter on it. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand and Quest of the Nile Stone has 2 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 5 life. Liliana's Caress, 2 mana, enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Waste Not, 2 mana, enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, get a 2/2 zombie. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, add black to your mana pool. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature spell, non-land card, draw a card. Megrim, 3 mana, enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, Megrim deals 2 damage to that player. Raider's Wake, 4 mana, enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, target player discards a card, or target opponent discards a card. Eldest Reborn, 5 mana, Saga. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. The next turn, each opponent discards a card, and the next turn, put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And in Bolas Clutches, 6 mana, legendary enchantment. Aura, enchant permanent. You control enchanted permanent, and enchanted permanent is legendary. Next we have the artifacts, Expedition Map, Dimir Signet, Izzet Signet, and Rakdos Signet. Sorry about that, guys. My camera died. I had to change the battery real quick. Next up is Thaumatic Compass, 2 mana artifact. I can pay 3 and tap it to search library for a basic land. And then if I control 7 or more lands, it transforms into Spires of Orazca, which I can tap to add a colorless to my mana pool, or I can tap to untap target attacking creature an opponent controls and remove it from combat. Next we have Darksteel Ingot, 3 mana artifact, indestructible, tap to add 1 mana of any color. Worn Power Stone, 3 mana, Worn Power Stone enters the battlefield, tap to add 2 to your mana pool. Guess Grimoire, 4 mana. Whenever an opponent discards a card from his or her hand, you may draw a card. Primal Amulet, 4 mana, instants and sorceries cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. Then if there are 4 or more charge counters on it, you may remove those counters and transform it. And it transforms into Primal Wellspring. Tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. When that mana is spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. Then we end off with Gilded Lotus, 5 mana, tap to add 3 mana of any one color. And finally we have all of the lands in the deck. I'm just going to kind of quick speed through these. Most of them are pretty common. Command Tower, Crumbling Necropolis. We got 6 islands, Bajuka Bog, 6 swamps, 5 mountains, Drowned Catacombs, Fetid Pools, Morphic Pool, Temple of Deceit for our blue-black lands, Izzet Boilerworks, Sulphur Falls, Temple of Epiphany for our blue-red lands, Canyon Slough, Dragon Skull Summit, Luxury Suite, and Rakdos Carnarium and Temple of Malice for our red-black lands, Arch of Orazca, Gaia Reach Sanitarium, Reliquary Tower, Temple of the False God, and Thespian Stage. And that is going to do it for Nicol Bolas, the Ravager EDH. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see this deck in action, be sure to drop a like and let me know down in the comment section below. I will see you guys next time.